Okay, with that, we now have over 50 people in the chat in this meeting. So that's excellent. And now's a good time to get started. Let me start off by introducing myself one more time. And we have CD11 colleagues to briefly introduce themselves as well, who are here to assist in answering people's questions and whatnot. My name is Michael Amster. I am the field deputy for West LA Sawtelle, ultimately the first point of contact for all city issues and problems in the Sawtelle community. And let me see, is Juan Fregoso the district director?
Hey, Michael, thank you. Again, Juan Fregoso, District Director for Councilwoman Tracy Park, and I'll hand it over. I think I see my colleagues Craig and Sarah here as well.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Flaherty, Legislative Deputy for Councilwoman Park.
Good evening, Craig Bullock. I am Councilwoman Park's Planning Director.
Thank you so much, guys. So with that, the councilwoman will be joining us very shortly, but before she arrives and we hand the floor off to the councilwoman, I'd like to first pass off to my good friend and a partner, Officer Jose Bermudez, the senior lead officer for the Sawtelle area. I've been working with him very closely in addressing public safety issues in Sawtelle. He's been a phenomenal partner of the office, and I'd like to pass it off to Officer Bermudez to share some of what's been going on in Sawtelle and his work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jose Bermudez. I am the senior lead officer for West LA's basic car 5-3 Sawtelle neighborhood. I've been working with Michael for these last couple of years, and we've been getting a lot accomplished around here. We've been able to do a lot within our area. My area just entails, just to let you guys know what I cover. I cover everything from Wilshire Boulevard on the north end, and on the south side, the 10 freeway. On the west side, Centinela, which butts up to Santa Monica, the city of Santa Monica, and on the east side up to Beloit, which is bordering the 405 freeway. That being said, when I first started in this position, it was crime was up and things weren't looking too good. So just to give you some numbers from compared last year to now, we have numbers that have gone down. Burglaries, grand theft autos, BFMVs, they're pretty much burglaries from motor vehicles, thefts, all property crime down. Burglaries were down 25%, grand thefts 12%, BFMVs 11%, thefts 55%. That being said, the one thing, actually two of the things that we're still having issues with are robberies. Robberies, our numbers compared to last year, we're up 37%, but they're up only for the fact that some of the thefts now, they're being upgraded to Estes robberies. So what may be a shoplift, now someone walking out with something, there's an altercation with security, now that becomes Estes robbery. So it becomes a robbery. It's technically a shoplift, but because there's some type of either verbal threats, some type of contact, it becomes a robbery. So that's what makes our numbers go up for robberies. Aggravated assaults, we've actually gone up just over 100% compared to last year. Last year we had 12. This year we have 25. That being said, is one of the things that have been occurring as of late. We've been having a lot of issues with transit on Santa Monica, so we've been having issues. So what we've been working on is extra patrol for the area to assist our transit systems, our special locations along the corridor. We just have a new location, which is Bundy, Ohio, which was one of our hot spots that we had, which was a transient encampment, which was now passed as a special enforcement zone. working with Council District 11 and LA Sanitation, who has been doing a wonderful job assisting us. Every time we've been doing cleanups, it's been helping. It's a great help just clearing out all those areas. And then we also had a partnership with the mayor's office, who actually did they did their cleanup there. Also, they did their inside safe. We were able to house multiple of the individuals at that location, which is now clear, is free. So a lot of the businesses they're very pleased with that. Just being touching base on some of our strategies that we've been doing. Like I said, we've been doing a lot of directed extra patrol in the area. At nighttime, we'll run units doing hide, which we call hide. So if you ever see any of our black and whites driving around with the lights on, it's just to show that they're in the area, and it kind of deters crime from what's in the surrounding area.
I apologize, but we now have the councilwoman here to who's here to speak. So if it's all right, I'd like to give the floor to Councilwoman Tracy Park to deliver.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, let's give her the floor. She's here.
But you were doing so great. I was listening.
I was on a roll, but that's okay. Let's kill my thunder. Go ahead. No, what's called? You're here. Everyone came to listen to you. We want to hear what's going on. So we're here for you.
We really, really appreciate your partnership. We could not deliver the results on the ground without your help. And I know it is a thankless slog out on the streets out there some days. So we really, really appreciate you. Everyone, thank you so much for being here. My apologies for coming in a few minutes late this evening. Thank you to Team CD11 for getting us kicked off. I was in Public Safety Committee and ran a little bit longer in my meetings than I had anticipated. So I have an entire agenda of things that I wanted to cover with you. I expect that probably a lot of what I want to talk about is probably top of mind for all of you as well. So I'd love to get through the prepared remarks. And Michael, I'm sure you have an agenda and a flow that you want to follow here. I don't want to step on any additional updates that LAPD may have, but I want to make sure that community members have as much time as possible to get as many questions in as we can. Let me just open by acknowledging that the last several months here in CD11 have been extraordinarily difficult. I want to thank the many, many of you who reached out to me and my team in the aftermath of the Palisades fire to ask how you could help. I want to thank all of you who volunteered, whether that was directly with my team staffing our donation center, answering our phones and taking care of our call center, or whether that was donating, taking meals to our first responders, opening your homes to your friends and loved ones from the Palisades, opening your schools. We obviously have Marquez Elementary now housed at Norris Sterry. And I just want to thank all of you for stepping up to the plate in a time of crisis. And then I also want to thank you all for giving me and my team the time that we needed to go through what has been a major reboot and to help us get through what has been absolutely catastrophic here on the West Side. We had been planning to do a series of town halls with all of our communities. Those got bumped out a little bit in the immediate aftermath of the fire, but I'm really glad that we have an opportunity to come back together tonight as West LA and Sawtelle to talk about issues that are just unique to your community. For those of you who may not already be following along, you can track what I'm up to in my weekly newsletter. You can sign up for that at cd11.lacity.org.gov.com, something you can put any one of those three in and you'll eventually get to the website. You can also follow me on social media at Councilwoman Tracy Park, TRACI Park. And that's a great way to stay updated with what we're working on. It has been really important to me since taking office just over 2 years ago that we be present in the community, that we be available to answer your questions, and that we serve as your advocate and your ally in City Hall. So I just want you all to know that we always welcome your feedback, your collaboration. You all know Michael, but you are welcome to email us and reach out to us. We are here to help problem solve and troubleshoot. And I just want you to know that even with all of the concern that we are hearing about the city budget, and I do want to be very clear that things are grim, I am actively fighting to ensure that the West Side is able to retain the basic services that are most important to us: tree trimming, sidewalk repairs, street lighting, police, firefighters, the things that keep our city safe and functioning. For those of you that have not had an opportunity to read my budget letter, Michael, maybe that's something you could circulate a link in the chat. So if folks want to see where we are pushing to preserve positions that have been proposed for cuts, you're welcome to take a look at that as well. With that, I want to turn to the subject of homelessness, because that obviously has been and continues to be top of mind for all of you, certainly for me and my team as well. From the outset of me taking office, we have worked very, very diligently across the entire West Side to drastically reduce the number of folks that were living in vehicles and tents and shelters on our streets and sidewalks. And we have been incredibly successful and housed well over 700 people. We continue to have a long road ahead and a lot of work to do. But I also want to remind folks of where we were as a district when I took office at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023. We had major encampments under the Centinela and Bundy and Barrington underpasses at the 10 freeway. We had major encampments on Olympic and Pico and Exposition under the 405 freeway. The Bundy Triangle has historically been a challenging encampment. We had them at Bundy and Pico and at Bundy and Wilshire, along Exposition, regularly at the intersections of Barrington and Centinela, and several other locations. However, through the hard work and partnership between CD11, with Michael doing so much of this on the ground, in collaboration with our friends at LAPD and LASAN and LASA and our nonprofit service providers, and in collaboration with the mayor and her team through Inside Safe, we have been able to drastically reduce the number of encampments for extended periods of time. These solutions are not always perfect, and sometimes we'll do an encampment intervention, and sometimes folks will start to come back again. And so when that happens, we marshal our resources, and so that we are able to lead and offer folks housing and other services. We have been very, very active in West LA Sawtelle. We have done 3 different Inside Safe operations there at Centinela and the 10, at the 405 and Olympic, and then most recently at the Bundy Triangle. We work as a council office literally every single day with LAPD and sanitation and our nonprofit partners to do our Care Plus cleanups and to address a lot of the trash and some of the collateral impacts. And we have one of the highest rates of getting folks into interim housing and then getting them further stabilized into PSH. So far, just this year, we have scheduled 119 Care Plus operations and 38 care operations. So there is a significant focus on the area. We have had some areas that have been very, very challenging. We have a lot of individuals who remain on the streets currently with serious mental health and addiction issues, and those have been some trickier problems to solve. We continue to have challenges with vehicles and RVs more frequently at this point than we do with the tents. One of the interventions and strategies that I have used since taking office is applying our city's Safe Schools and Parks Ordinance, which allows us to prevent tent encampments around certain sensitive use sites like our schools, parks, our libraries. And then in certain cases where there has been a history of crime or fires, and we can do legislative findings on public safety issues, we are also able to utilize that ordinance to protect certain locations. So before I took office, we had none of those protections anywhere in Council District 11. We now have rolled those out all over the West Side, and in West LA, Sawtelle neighborhood in particular, those zones are in effect around all of our schools and daycare. We also have enacted them for Centinela and the 10, Barrington and the 10, Stoner Park, Bundy Triangle, and the perimeter of the VA campus. So we use those tools in connection with our intervention services, and generally we have been successful with it. But as I mentioned, that only governs the tent encampments. It does not govern the RVs. And there are a number of competing reasons and challenges why the vehicles have not been addressed as quickly. I won't bore you with all of those reasons because frankly, it starts to sound like excuses and I am getting tired of repeating them. But I have introduced multiple pieces of legislation to help us try to address this problem. One of the things I introduced is legislation that would crack down on unscrupulous landlords who rent or who purchase these vehicles that are unsafe, unsanitary. In many cases, these are vehicles that could not pass any basic fire safety, operability, or environmental inspections. Oftentimes the individuals living in those vehicles don't have leases, they don't have the keys to them, they couldn't move them in an emergency if they had to. And so that ordinance cracking down on those illegal rentals is with the city attorney's office. And I have also introduced legislation that would mirror our Safe Schools and Parks ordinance and prohibit those vehicle encampments around, around schools, parks, and other sensitive use sites. So we do continue to work with DOT to cite and enforce and impound vehicles where we can. My direction to DOT has been very, very clear that I want all posted parking restrictions enforced equally. There are challenges with staffing and other issues on some of that. We have some very, very limited resources when it comes to our impound ability. And we are still entangled in quite a bit of litigation related to vehicle dwelling. And so those are some of the challenges that we are having. But with my legislation that would mirror 4118, we are also calling for an assessment in every council district of locations where those vehicles can park with access to adequate services and resources. So that is making its way through the process. The motion and legislation were approved, and the city is now in the process of identifying those locations. So as those developments continue to unfold, I will keep you updated on them. And again, social media and my newsletter are a really good way to stay up to date. I want to talk to another issue that we hear frequently about, certainly from the West LA Sawtelle community, but from other impacted neighborhoods on the west side. And that relates to density and development and land use. And there is a lot of concern here on the west side and in other parts of the city as well about plans to add more and more density. I have always been concerned about that when it is not accompanied by adequate investment in the infrastructure that is necessary to support it. So whether that is our roads, our sidewalks, our schools, our sewer system, our electric grid, our police department, and our fire department, I have a lot of issues with that. Over the last decade, there have been hundreds of new housing laws issued by the state that have essentially removed local control over many, many development projects. Things are permissible now that allow for height and density that do not have any requirement to provide parking. And that has caused a lot of change and impacts in our communities. And I have always said this, and I will say this again tonight. The West LA Sawtelle community has borne the brunt of densification on the west side over the last couple of decades. And your single-family neighborhoods, frankly, have been decimated. You have very, very small pockets of those neighborhoods left. And especially in light of the unique history and culture in and around your part of our city, I think it is really important that we take every step that we can to protect and preserve what's left. I actually do spend quite a lot of time in West LA Sawtelle. And so I see with my own eyes how parking impacted your neighborhoods have become. And that is something that I worry will continue to be a challenge with these compounding laws that have been coming out of Sacramento. One of the things that we have tried to do to balance the need for additional housing, especially good housing projects on the west side, is to work through our community plan update process. And our team has done now dozens of meetings with community members and stakeholders on all sides of the questions and issues around housing development in West LA Sawtelle. And we compiled all of that feedback and ideas and thoughts and submitted those to the planning department, who really took our feedback seriously. And they made some very, very substantive revisions to the proposed map that was allocating the density in your community plan area. And we have been able to successfully keep that limited to your transit and commercial corridors so that we can try to protect what's left of your single family neighborhoods. But in large part, West LA will continue to be a target for development, in large part because you are a transit-oriented community. And that makes it more attractive for building and development. There are certain parts of the west side where we are going to see more and more of those kinds of projects. West LA Sawtelle has always been, to the extent there are still properties left or land for development. I think you'll continue to see that. Westchester and Mar Vista and communities that have those commercial and transit corridors are likely going to continue to be areas where we see a lot of that densification going in. So I know a lot of you have concerns about that. My team and I work very, very closely with the community to try to understand what the concerns are, what the community givebacks are that we might be able to get from a developer. But as I said, a lot of this stuff is now by right. And most of these projects, including ED1 projects, don't even come to the city council for a vote anymore. So I just want to make everyone aware of that and know that we are here to help and try to manage and balance these issues as best we can. But there are some limitations even on what my role and my ability is on that. I know that a lot of you have questions about what's going on with the West LA Municipal Building, which for many, many years now has been in the pipeline for development. You all will remember there were years of community meetings about the development of that site as some housing and affordable housing. We worked really hard on trying to close the loop on that project to get it done when I took office. But I did want to let you know that there have been some financing challenges on that project, and its future at this point is uncertain. This was to be a joint city and county project. We are working internally to identify some additional funding opportunities that may be out there that we could utilize to try to help close the gap on that. I think that's about it in terms of, I'm sure you will have other questions on the density. I think I've covered everything. You all are aware of the RENA mandates and the effort citywide to increase zoning capacity. Pursuant to that RENA mandate, we are supposed to be building 450,000 units of new housing in the city of Los Angeles. And, you know, I don't know that we're going to meet those goals. I think that there are a number of compounding challenges right now with the market conditions, the labor costs, ULA serving as a detriment to building on the west side where the costs are already high. So it'll be sort of interesting to see how things taper as we are right on the brink, frankly, of a recession. I want to talk about finally some good things that we are really excited about before I turn it over to the community and open it up to questions. One of the things that we have been working on and with is our Bundy Triangle Committee. Michael, your field deputy, has been actively involved with the neighbors trying to envision how we could reactivate this space, how we can bring the community into it and open it up. You know, that is a parcel of land that has been fenced off and inaccessible and just fallen into disrepair for the last 20 years. I can't believe it's been that long, but it has been that length of time already. So we've had an opportunity now to do a farmer's market there. We did the night market, Michael. That was great. And I know you continue to work with the community, and we're really excited about some ideas that we have to keep bringing programming and some upgrades to that activity. Stoner Park as the only rec center in Sawtelle, I just can't overstate how important that asset is to you. We are working on finally getting some long overdue repairs done to the tennis courts. And then at the West LA Skate Park, we've been working with our beautification teams to address graffiti and vandalism. We've also been working with the community to activate the space. Michael has held a couple of really highly successful food banks where we have had hundreds of participants. And I think just seeing the volume of need in our local community is a really important reminder of how critical a lot of those services are. Here on the west side, you know, we don't have the family source centers and the youth source centers and some of the programming that is available in other parts of our city. And so I'm really grateful to CD11 and a lot of the local grassroots organizations that have stepped up to really try to enliven that space and make it a great community asset. So those are some of the things that we are working on over there. I kind of breezed right through a long list of notes that I had to talk to you guys about. Hopefully I covered most things, but I think, Michael, at this point, we'll open it up to questions, or were there some loaded questions that you wanted me to answer? Whatever you suggest.
Thank you, boss. We have a few things in order. The one thing, so to just lay out, the one thing I do want to do, I want to make sure that Officer Bermudez has his opportunity to conclude
Yes.
his speaking points. Once Officer Bermudez has concluded that, and I'm really appreciative that he's here to help us out here with this town hall. We'll then get into a few ground rules, and we'll then get into some people who've raised their hands. But let's begin, or rather, get back to Officer Bermudez. So take it away, Officer.
Hello. All right. So just I just wanted to kind of piggyback on some of the 4118 zones, some of those locations that we've been working on. One of the things that's been very helpful with us is the Care Plus cleanups. We've been able to respond to the locations, any additional locations that, for whatever reason, people use them as dumping sites. So it creates havoc there. So I'll put in a 311 request. I always recommend for any citizens to, if they see any type of debris in the area, 311, it's a great resource. But the 4118 zones, it helps so much for us just to be able to respond to those locations after they've been cleaned up. We normally respond back to the location because there'll be like 1 or 2 encampments that return. We'll be able to educate them. And if education doesn't work, a lot of times we'll try to reach out, try to get them some additional resources. And at that point, we start doing enforcement. Unfortunately, it has to come to that, but something has to get done, and we need to clear these areas out and leave these sidewalks clear for clear passage. Again, just working with the council district, whatever you guys need from us, we're always here to assist you. I speak to Michael on a daily, if not every other day, just to see what's needed. If you guys need something from myself or any of my colleagues, if it's something that, because I'm not here every day. So if it's something that I can attend to myself, I always respond to, I'll reach out to my colleagues to assist me with whatever needs to get done. So I'm here to assist. We're here to assist. We're here for you guys, and whatever you guys need, reach out. Feel free. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Officer Bermudez. With that, I think we'll be able to get into questions. As a initial point, I do want to note that that we do have a bit of a time limit for speaking, that that I'll seek to issue a warning and then a cutoff. When I call you and I give you the opportunity to speak, you'll have a minute to speak and offer your question to the councilwoman. And other than that, if if I allow you to speak and there's some audio issues, I'll do my best to try and get back to you as soon as we're able. And we also have several questions in the Q&A for the I've been able to already answer several of them, but I'm also looking at them as for advancing the conversation further if there's any lull in hands. But I think the first one that had their hand raised was Zoe Montaner. So I'm going to allow to talk. And okay. Let's see here. I am now asking Zoe to unmute.
Yes. Hi,
Yes.
I'm in Santa Monica, and I appreciate the police addressing the issues that link us. And I go to Sawtelle constantly because I love, Asian food, and I enjoy it. When I go there, I feel like I'm in vacation. I'm in another, I'm in another country. So as part of your efforts in Sawtelle, Do you coordinate anything with the city of Santa Monica in terms of law enforcement? And also, Santa Monica recently passed a program that they are going to allow people to walk with alcohol on the Third Street Promenade. That is being a little bit controversial because, they're trying to raise, the coffers because we have also been impacted by a fiscal crisis. However, the concern of the neighborhood groups, and I've been attending the meetings of the neighborhood groups, is like this is going to increase the crime, and we have an issue with crime and public safety in the city of Santa Monica.
1 minute.
All right,
repeat
thank you,
yourself.
Zoe, for that. Zoe, thank you for that. So yes, I do work closely with the city of Santa Monica. The Santa Monica Mayor Lana Negrete is a good friend of mine. We spend a lot of time together. We talk about the issues because the reality is CD11 surrounds Santa Monica on 3 sides. We share a coastline. We share an economy, we share a lifestyle, and we share a common set of problems and challenges. And so we do actually work very closely with Santa Monica. We've done a number of police operations and homeless interventions jointly together. So yes, we do collaborate with Santa Monica. We also do with Culver City and Council District 5, another great example of a collab that we did with them was, you remember the encampment that had been there for a decade at the 405 in Venice and Globe. That was us, Culver City, and Council District 5 all working together. So yes, we do that when we need to. With the alcohol until 4 a.m., I have folks in my district in some places that are pushing for it. You can imagine that the business community, the restaurants and the bars, of course, are supportive of it. My issue for CD11 is that even our, let's say you wanted to do that in Venice Beach, at Oceanfront Walk, or in Washington Square. There are residences immediately above, below, and next door to those types of establishments. And I think it's an unfair burden on the neighbors to have the noise and the traffic and the issues go on at all hours of the night. Maybe in some places in Hollywood or downtown or Las Vegas, those kinds of hours make some sense, but I don't think they make sense in the neighborhood. I hadn't really thought too much about Santa Monica and the 3rd Street Promenade, but you've obviously got some serious crime problems there. And can bars being open that late contribute? Yes. And to drunk driving? Yes. But frankly, I worry more about crime by criminals, the burglaries, the unstable people who are on the streets where these assaults feel and seem more random. I worry about that as a crime issue, probably more than I worry about tourists or even the locals hanging out for a couple more after last call, to be honest with you about it. But yeah, would that create possible problems? Yes. And so if Santa Monica was going to do that, I would think that it would be incumbent on them to ensure that there is enough law enforcement presence and that the rules are being followed and that people are being safe about it. But that's sort of my initial reaction to that issue. Thank you for the question, Zoe.
Thank you for answering, Councilwoman.
All right, thank you, Zoe. Now I move on to, I believe, Lori. Lori, I believe you are able to unmute.
Hi, thanks so much for having this town hall. And I know you did address the issue of increasing density in Sawtelle. And I'm specifically, and I know we've spoken before, I'm concerned about the west of Bundy area. And I know we've also talked about, we're concerned if our zoning changes from R1 to R2. Again, as you had mentioned about the support for the infrastructure. And I was just sort of wondering where we are with this. Like, do you continue to support us, not to be upzoned? And as neighbors, what can we do to work with you and with the planning office to make an effective argument to try to preserve our community as it is?
Yeah, Lori, thank you for the question. And, I've actually come out and walked your neighborhood. Michael and I,
Yes.
over the course of several days, actually door knocked all over your neighborhood. We are really concerned about it. But Craig, I'm trying to see, I don't have a regular Brady Bunch set up.
Craig is here.
Yes.
Maybe Craig will know, because we did advocate and lobby for that. And I think it was either in the first or it's in the most recent round of feedback that is going to planning, because that was one of the areas after the revised map came back that we still weren't satisfied with. So I think that is part of what is being considered for the next updates. And yes, I do continue to support you on that.
Okay,
And
great.
I remain worried about it.
I appreciate that. And if you can also, if there's anything that we can do as neighbors to work with the planning office, we're also happy to do that, but we appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I will just add here as a footnote to that. You all have heard that there's about 1,800 city positions that are slated to be cut as part of this $1 billion budget balancing act we are doing in council. Among those positions are staff in the city planning department that would be working on our community plan updates. And I cannot tell you how irritated I am that after we just spent 2 years doing, 125 community meetings to elicit all of that feedback and then to write those reports to the planning department and to put in all of this time into redoing those maps, to have those positions go away and to cause additional delay does not make me very happy. So that is one of the sets of positions that I am actually going to be fighting to try to protect and preserve in this budget. But I also want everybody to know this budget is going to be a bloodbath, and we are going to see service reductions and no new programming. I am trying to hang on to what we have, but we're not getting anything new in this cycle. So anyway, just everyone be aware of that. This process may end up taking us longer than we had hoped.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lori. With that, I will now turn to Tasha.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Hi, Tasha.
Hi, thank you so much for coming out. I think one of the concerns that I have, on the neighborhood council, and I'm also the teacher and librarian at University High School. So I'm, concerned with sort of the type of housing that's sort of excluding families. When you're putting up 80 units and it's really all for single people, that's a major concern. So that's one thing that I'm very concerned about. That we're not supporting families in the neighborhood. Another thing that I'm concerned about with that housing is sort of the health impacts of people. Like when you look at really small units, there's really no kitchen. So that means, that the big beneficiary of that is Uber Eats and DoorDash and that kind of stuff. And people are no longer able to, prepare food. You can't really cook in it. I mean, I live in a small 800, 900 square foot place in Santa Monica, but I have a nice kitchen and I can cook for my family and I can prepare food. You take that away and people have very limited health options and they're really dependent on these services. And the other thing that really concerns me about those kinds of places is there's no common meeting areas. I'm looking at places in Chicago where they have these beautiful meeting areas for people who are living in smaller places, with gyms and workstations and even bigger kitchens that people can use. And there doesn't seem to be any philosophical pressure in terms of making that happen. And I also really feel that when people live in really small places, I'll finish up, they can't have guests. And once you can't have guests and you have a little tiny cave, it gets dirty, it gets messy, it gets depressing. And that's a health issue. It's a mental health issue. And then those properties deteriorate very quickly because they're not, I'm a messy person and I stay clean because I invite people over and I'm like, we got to clean up. And then it gets cleaned up. But if it's too small, you take that away from people in a small space and it's going to create property that's going to degrade in value quickly.
Yeah. Wow. So Tasha, there is so much to unpack in all of what you just said. And I share your concerns about a lot of that. Most of the housing, you are correct, that is being built are singles and 1 bedrooms. 2 bedrooms are the next most common, but less common. And we build almost no 3 or 4 bedroom rentals. So you are 100% correct that families feel the squeeze. And part of the reason for that is, we talk about units of housing that we're required to produce, and this is all part of our housing element and our general plan and commitments that we've made to state regulators. And so I think that you're right. A lot of times there is more a focus on, let's get these units online and check the box, rather than there is thinking about the demographics and the population and who it is you're trying to serve. There are young people and, folks that want roommate situations, college and grad students, young professionals, people just starting out their careers. But you're right, we don't build housing for families. One of the other things that troubles me about housing production in Los Angeles generally is everything is apartments. We are basically taking the American dream of home ownership out of Los Angeles. And I would like to see more properties coming online that have a pathway to ownership. And, even if it's small condos, it's a nest egg and it's an investment for young people who are starting out. And we have nothing that I can't afford to buy a house in CD11. I don't own the house I live in. And I'm almost 50 years old. And so, I really empathize, with how difficult this has become for people. And that does drive out young families that want to be able to buy a home and have that investment. It drives out, people that want to get more for their money because our rents are exorbitantly high. I also want to mention about, the amenities that you were describing, the, kind of the meeting areas and things like that. When we government are behind a housing development project, usually that occurs because we own the piece of land that we are going to be giving to that developer to build the housing on. Under those circumstances, we have a lot more flexibility to include open space and meeting rooms and those types of amenities. But when you're a stack and pack developer and you are looking at a spreadsheet and a bottom line, you're not thinking about those kinds of amenities. That is the type of thing that I work with my planning team to try to extract. But again, a lot of that stuff, this is what's frustrating to me, right? I don't control the private real estate market. I don't control who puts their property up for sale. I don't control who buys it. I don't control what they propose to build on it. Like if somebody buys 2 adjoining residential lots that have homes on them, they can theoretically put an SB9 property there if it meets the requirements. And that's just not something that even would come to the city council. And so we do try to extract those amenities where we can.
I'm wondering, I know this is probably a silly idea, but I'm wondering about of people who are doing stuff and maybe, put up things that are a little bit nicer, even maybe giving some like ethical building awards by the city that maybe put them in line for getting a contract on a government property because they've shown themselves to be a more ethical participant in the process.
And there are definitely some builders that are better than others. I have a few that I do not like one bit, and I have a handful that I love working with that I think do really good work. And I'll tell you the difference between the ones that I like and the ones I don't like. The ones I like are the ones who go out and talk to the neighbors, who get the support, who make the concessions, who understand that their building, their new project contributes to the neighborhood. And those are the developers that I like to work with. You know,
Right,
unfortunately,
maybe
there's some
some
bad
kind of
ones that tell us to pound sand.
Right, some kind of recognition system that's really
Yeah.
public might be an interesting thing to look at.
Great idea, Tasha. Thank you. I love it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your
Yeah.
time.
Of course.
Thank you, Tasha. I'll just make a note that we have quite a few hands here, and I do want to make sure we get through everyone who's taking the time to engage here. I now move forward to Vanessa Batista. Hi, Vanessa. Are you able to unmute?
So, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, hello, good evening. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Vanessa Bautista. I am a community relations strategist at Best Friends Animal Society here in Los Angeles. We're actually located just under a mile from Sawtelle, on the other side of the 10. Just wanted to introduce myself, just started. We want to be a resource to your office. I know there's a lot of conversations going around right now about the budget as well. So thank you for championing that. But yeah, we would love to connect with you, Councilwoman, or your staff. And I would love the opportunity to connect and discuss how we can work together on animal welfare initiatives that align alongside your district. So,
Vanessa, thank you for coming and introducing yourself. I'm familiar with your organization. Incredible work that you guys do. And yes, yes, yes. All the more help and support we can get to address, the issues with our animal services here in Los Angeles. And you all know what those issues are. You're all aware of the budget dispute. You probably saw that Councilmember Lee and I did a joint budget letter. Luckily, the budget committee has agreed to restore that funding. So the status quo, I can't fathom that this city council will vote that down. So hopefully that all moves forward. Those positions remain intact. We don't close any shelters. We're not doing any downsizing. We're remaining at status quo. But we all know it is not nearly enough for what needs to be done. And the animals who are living in those conditions are suffering for it. And let me just do a plug for animal services for any of you that may have it in your heart to adopt a pet. We have a lot of animals in need, and we would love to get them out of our shelters and into your homes. So yes, Vanessa, I will look forward. Let's make a point, Michael, connect with Vanessa, and let's make sure that we're in touch with her.
Certainly. I definitely have Vanessa's email and reach out.
awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. So we will look forward to hearing from you soon.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, with that, I now move forward to Jonathan Howe.
Hey, council member. Thanks for making the time. So I'm 25. I'm a law student at UCLA, and I don't know if I'll be able to afford a home here. So to me, your efforts to block any housing that's not a single family home feel like you're shutting the door in the face of young people who want a future in this community. I also struggle to see how you can reconcile your opposition to density and parking restrictions with California's climate goals, especially when people are forced into making longer and longer commutes and suburban sprawl threatens our wild areas. So my question is this: what do you say to young people who are worried about their future in this neighborhood, both in terms of affordability and the climate? And second, what can we do as young people and as your neighbors to support efforts to build a walkable, livable community here in Sawtelle?
So, Jonathan, thank you for the question. Let me start with the affordability and the production of housing and the climate issues. So, I am not opposed to housing production. I think we need to do housing production. We need to do good housing production. We need to do it in smart places. And we need to bring a variety of types and models of housing online that meet the varying types of needs that our constituents and our demographics have. If you read the housing element of our general plan, you will see that we are far below where we need to be with housing for seniors, housing for families, affordable housing across different types of income points. So I do support good housing production, and we have thousands of units under construction and in the pipeline. My concerns about the added density relate to the demands on our infrastructure, which often do not come with the necessary upgrades and supports that are needed to maintain all of that added density and traffic and use and strain on the system. And so in communities that are particularly parking challenged, and there are some on the west side that are, and others that aren't. West LA Sawtelle is extraordinarily parking challenged. Some parts of Venice are extremely parking challenged. You do not have those same issues in some other parts of CD11. Part of the reason that I advocate for the placement of density along the commercial corridors and close to transit is so that people have the ability to use transit and get out of their cars. But that is not an option for everyone. And so as I think about these issues, we are trying to balance the needs of producing housing. And Jonathan, I would like for someone like you who is 25 in law school to have an opportunity to buy a house. I was 25 in law school once too, here in Los Angeles. And I can't afford to buy a house in this city. So I want you to know, I actually do relate to what you're saying. But building nothing but studio and 1-bedroom apartments, that's not going to get you to buy a house.
I'm
Make you a
curious about the
permanent class of renters. And so I would like to see opportunities for those investments to be able to happen and for you to be able to participate in that opportunity if that's what you want to do. I think walkable communities also are really important. I love them where we have them. Probably the best one on the west side is Playa Vista. I think Sawtelle is one of our more walkable communities. Some parts of Venice are walkable. But no matter where you walk in the city of Los Angeles, our sidewalks are a total mess. We have billions of dollars in backlogs of broken sidewalks. So if you want to have walkable neighborhoods, focusing our investments and our priorities with our budget on those core essential services is the only way that we're going to get it done. And it won't happen in a year, and it won't happen by accident. It would take a multi-year budget, long-term capital planning, and consistent leadership to get it done. So I want all of those things for you. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And moving now to Jennifer W.
Hi, Tracy. My name is Jennifer, and I've been a resident here on Stoner Avenue for 19 years.
Hi.
Specifically regarding density and the project that's slated for 1747 Stoner, which is an 8-story building with no parking. I was just wondering if there is anything the neighbors can do to revise this project so that the height is more in line with the existing neighborhood and parking can be provided. I can think of so many sites along the commercial corridors that would be more appropriate for a height project of this magnitude. And it's insane to me that the new projects going in south of Olympic are going to have parking, and they are literally right across the street from the metro station.
Yeah, it's insanity. And if I recall correctly, 1747 Stoner, those are actually replacing, might be some duplexes, I think. Oh no, oh shoot, did I just Zoom? Did I just end my Zoom? No, sorry. I thought I might have. I was looking at it on Google Maps. I wanted to see what properties were there. Yeah, those are some duplexes there. This is the type of project that gives me pause. These are the kinds of things at that height and that scale that cause a lot of consternation. I have my planning director actually in the Zoom with us this evening, Craig. If you are available and you want to jump on for a minute, since you're kind of on the front lines with the community plan updates and engaging with our constituents on this, what are your thoughts on this particular project, and what elbow room do we have, Craig, to try to get some community give backs and to make sure the neighbors' concerns are being addressed?
So we are in communication and with the applicant. So they are using the density bonus laws that were provided for by the state of California, which actually is what allowed this to happen as far as the density with the parking. We're hoping that, you know, and continued dialogue, but I think advocacy of a neighborhood to your state representatives is always beneficial because you are impacted by this. We are, you know, obviously obligated to implement those laws that the state passes. And we continue to work with developers like we are doing tomorrow for a project on Beach and Delray to keep enhancing projects even though they're by right. But it's really tough the way the state has enacted these laws, unfortunately.
And so, Craig, thank you for that. And I think that's a really good point. And I know folks sometimes think I have some kind of a magic wand that I have the ability to say yes or no to a project or a development or a developer. And that just is not the case. That is a widespread misperception. I think 2 decades ago, that was 100% true. But over the last 10 years, for sure, the state has seized control over most planning and land use issues. And, you know, people, of course, reach out to us because we're the council office. We're on the ground. We are the closest to you, the easiest to get a hold of. We actually do answer the phone and return emails in my office. And so, you know, people, I don't think, realize that the vast majority of these rules are coming directly out of the state assembly and the state senate. And I have found oftentimes in speaking with people in the community, they have no idea who their assembly member or their state senator is. I'm not saying that's true of you guys. You guys made the time to come out tonight to talk to your council members. So I'm not talking about you, but generally folks don't know that. And so, Craig, that is a really good point. To help engage with your state lawmakers generally on the policy. And then for any particular specific project, please stay in touch with me and the team. We are always here to hear your feedback, your concerns, your ideas for what could be done to try to revise a project or what things we might be able to ask for. We are always happy to have those conversations.
Now going to move forward to Malcolm Ray. I would like to make a note that we have about 20 minutes left and 11 hands raised.
Okay, I should stop. I should answer faster and talk less.
So Malcolm, you're ready. You're now able to speak.
Thank you for taking the time. I want to very quickly tell you about a project we did here in Sawtelle. A group of us got together after the fires. We did a canvas within Sawtelle every weekend in February with a group of volunteers knocking on approximately 300 doors And we had a survey that people could take online or with us at the door. And our findings were that many residents were unaware of where to get real-time updates. They were worried about smoke inhalation and wondered about resources to get a hold of air purifiers. We also found big concerns of people who were employed in the Palisades, tennis instructors, nurses, were a few of the people we spoke with. If somebody was a house cleaner, who are now having issues paying their rent and affording life in LA because their work is no longer existed. And we also found just an addition.
Please wrap up, please.
Okay, I'll send our memo to Michael, and we would love it if you would read it personally and give us your feedback.
Yeah, that would be happy to. And if ever you are finding that there is a need or a gap in information, please, please, please let folks know how to get a hold or where to obtain that information. I mean, we have addressed all of those issues, from air purifiers to relief for displaced workers. And, you know, I put it on my CD11 website, in my newsletter, in my social media. I do press conferences. I try to get it out through community partners like our neighborhood councils to try to saturate as deep as I possibly can. But Malcolm, thank you for that. Would love to see your memo. And please, anytime you ever come, and this is true for anyone in this call, if you come across a constituent in need, or you're aware of someone that needs help with city services or resources, know you can always refer them to me and my team. And we are always here to help try to troubleshoot and problem solve. Michael, you're muted.
I now turn to Galen.
All right.
Hi, Councilwoman. Thank you for this town hall. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Galen.
I want to say that I also, for people listening, was once a 25-year-old who didn't think I could ever afford housing in Los Angeles. I'm now a 45-year-old with 2 kids being raised in Sawtelle. And, you know, I think that we represent some of the community that does want to kind of continue to have some space for our kids to play and trees and greenery that also helps the environment. I understand the state is passing a lot of laws, and I guess I just wanted to ask if, with that all being factored off of a base, if there's a way to work with city planning to control the height enhancements that we're doing at the city level that then translate to enhancements when the state works off of that and adds additional stories, and we end up with 8 stories in a neighborhood with nothing over 4.
So it's a really good question, Galen. Thank you for that. Craig, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't believe the city of LA offers any additional enhancements. We're not the ones that say, you know, state law allows you 7, but we're telling you to go 8. Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but what we have done at the city level is just basically implement what is allowed under state law. It's not a great answer for you necessarily, but Craig, anything to add on that?
So part of a developer's ability when they file an application with the city for a density bonus case is that they are able to get incentive and waivers to make their development possible. And, you know, height waivers of a height can be a request that they make and then we're obligated to give.
But is that state law or is that city policy?
No, that's in state density as far as qualifying
The state
for
density
incentives
bonus,
and waivers. And so we work with applicants, you know, once they file. But for example, the project on Stoner that was just referred to earlier, I mean, that under state density bonus law was a ministerial approval project. So that didn't have any public hearings. And the implementation of that was not even appealable once the letter of compliance was issued. So, I mean, that's some of the challenges that we deal with. And it's not to say, like you were saying, that we don't support housing. We would just like development to have more be shaped by community input to address those concerns that are felt by everyone who has to live, in or near the project.
And so to, I think, really get at the answer was what can we do as a council office? Like, what is our role here? For us, it has been through our community plan update process, as we have engaged with residents and stakeholders on all sides of the housing questions to elicit that feedback and then to share all of that information with the planning department. Those community plan updates is how, we have strategically tried to keep those taller, more dense buildings along the major thoroughfares. So it's not ideal. I would prefer to see the density gradually stepped down back into the single family neighborhoods. But trying to keep at least limited as much as possible to those major corridors to protect the internal parts of the neighborhoods. And so that's a strategy that we have used in all of the community plan updates that have been that we've been working on for the last 2 years. And that's the entire southern end of the district in West LA, Sawtelle. So that's how we're trying to approach it as best we can. And then, by the way, when there are good housing bills that, come out of Sacramento, we often do resolutions in support of those. And then sometimes when we see something that we know is going to cause a local issue or have adverse impacts, we'll do a resolution opposing those. The city attorney's office also runs an entire program of legislative support in Sacramento. So those are some of the ways that we do. And plus, I regularly talk to our other elected officials, and the topic of density is something that just naturally comes up. But as you know, there is a huge push to do housing and to do density. And there's a lot of, folks making those decisions that want to see more of it, who are not accountable to their constituents every day on the ground in the neighborhood the way we are, which annoys me about it, frankly.
Thank you.
And now turn to Jay.
Okay, good evening, council member.
Hi, Jay. How are you? Thank you for your emails, by the way. I got those.
Good, awesome. Never good news, but it's got to be, it's out there. So my question, going back to budgetary issues and the community plans, would you consider moving to suspend all specific plans and move those personnel in planning over to the community plans to finish the community plans?
Yeah, I mean, I possibly, I would need to know what we were pulling away from. I mean, that's part of the trade-off, right? So whether it's staying and planning, but Jay, here's the other crazy part about with these layoffs, regardless of what positions get cut, there's bumping rights. So the layoffs are based on seniority. So your least senior people are going to be let go first, but then after that, they have the right to bump, and they can bump across departments. So when that happens, people are moving around from one discipline to the next, from one department to the next. It's absolutely catastrophic for continuity of operations and institutional knowledge and know-how, especially in a city as complicated as LA is. So yeah, I mean, I'm always open to looking for what that horse trade is. I guess I would just want to think about what are we giving up to retain those.
Moving now to Jaybird. I do want to note that we're at 7:21. So now Jaybird, you have the floor.
Hello?
Hey, Jaybird.
Yeah, John Schwada here. Councilwoman Park, I want to thank you for engineering the resolution that will help us establish RV parking restrictions on Federal Avenue. And I just wanted to find out whether the same kind of restrictions can be are you working with Lindsay Horvath, to get the same restrictions on the other side of Federal Avenue?
I know what you're talking about. Michael, can you give us an update on where we are with the other side of Federal?
Yeah, so we are engaging with the county extensively on this one. We've spoken to parking enforcement, and as I shared, John, as an initial matter, parking enforcement, they saw the resolution which puts signs on both sides of Federal. They see no issue with enforcing on both sides, and it will certainly pursue full clarity on this. But otherwise, we are moving forward, and we'll be fully prepared to enforce those signs to the fullest of our ability once they go up.
Well, wait a minute. I just want to get it clear, because I've been told before that that the east side of Federal Avenue is basically within county jurisdiction, and that's why we need to get Horvath support to get signage on that side of the street. But you're telling me that that you can do this now with Tracy's resolution?
So yeah, at this current, what I can tell you is that parking enforcement's understanding is that they can enforce on both sides, and ultimately we'll work with the county on seeing how we effectuate the enforcement all the same. Moving forward to Jen.
Hi.
Hey, Jen, how you doing?
Hello, very good. Hi, Councilman Parks. Thank you. I wanted to first of all thank you for your comments on responsible housing development and density. They were really reassuring. It's actually gotten a bit of a crash course in local legislation here, and you're actually the first official I've heard really speak publicly about this, so I really appreciate it. Also want to make a comment about the development going in at 1747 Stoner Avenue, which is 8 floors, 53 units, not a lick of parking in a very parking constrained street. And the additional thing is it is directly across the park from Stoner Community Center and Park, where it's right out my window. I am watching families and unaccompanied children cross that street all day long. So 53 at a minimum, new cars showing up is a real danger to our families, quite frankly. And look, I hear, so many of you say that, ED1, some of the other things have really kind of neutered, I think, maybe the ability, or maybe it never existed. It was a myth that you could help oppose some of these things. I wanted to go back to what Craig was saying. He says, engage with your state representatives. My question is, how? I can write emails all day long. Is that going to make a big difference?
Oh.
And then I would love real counsel on the most potent, meaningful way for us to engage with them to make a difference. And then, of course, curiosity around whether or not your office will be making public comments outside of venues like this in opposition.
Yes, we can and we do. I mean, I am not one to be a shrinking violet about things, and I tend to cut against the grain pretty often. In terms of how to engage with your other elected officials, I think sitting down face to face and sharing the concerns, especially when they are accompanied with proposals and ideas that help resolve the concerns, is a good way. I think, the higher up your elected officials go at the state level and the county level, the further and further they are away from day-to-day people. They represent millions of folks, and it's harder to get sit-down meetings with them. But I would recommend working as a neighborhood. Get a group together and see if you can get on the schedule and sit down and, kind of go over not just concerns about this one project, although that may be the impetus for your meeting, but when you just look at West LA Sawtelle on a map and the density that has been added over the last decade plus, and the large swaths of neighborhoods that have been eliminated to accommodate them, it's a pretty shocking story. And like I said, West LA Sawtelle has borne the brunt of this for a long, long time. And, most policymakers are just thinking about blanket, especially when it's at the state level, right? Those are blanket, one size fits all policies, typically being introduced by people who have probably never stepped foot in your community. And that drives me nuts. I don't think the bureaucrats in Sacramento know our neighborhoods better than us. So I would recommend trying to get together as a group and see if you can sit down and get their attention that way. If you can't, all of us, all elected officials and public officials, many of us are regularly at events, hosting town halls, giving community updates. I would follow along for those opportunities and go meet your county supervisor, go meet your assembly members, and your state senators. You have some good folks there, and reasonable people, and people that are willing to listen. So we actually are pretty lucky over here on the west side, but that's what I would recommend doing. And yes, I do advocate outside of these kinds of meetings all the time. So yes.
Okay, we are now in like 3 minutes. Let's see what we can do. Next one is Vic Pacheco.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick comments on the Board of Neighborhood Council meeting last night. There was quite a bit of discussion about the budget cuts, how they're affecting the neighborhood councils, and particularly the neighborhood purpose grants. It looks like the neighborhood councils will be able to keep the rollover money, but the discussion was that some neighborhood councils have to pay for office space, storage space, meeting space, others don't. So it's kind of inequitable in that sense. I've wondered if anybody had thought about perhaps in the short term sharing that rollover money among the neighborhood councils so that some of them could survive better. That was one thing. I don't know if you could, move the money from one budget account to another, or if you would expand the definition of a purpose grant, of neighborhood purpose grant, to include projects outside of the neighborhood council area. The other thing was,
my apologies, Vic. Is that all questions?
I had one.
Let's let him wrap up, and then we'll take just a couple more questions. I know I have another event, but let's get through a couple more, and let's let Vic wrap up too.
Do you want me to finish?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Okay, the other thing was density in our West LA Sawtelle area. I don't hear any discussion of the fact that this area is considered a high opportunity area. One of the factors that goes into that is the quality of the schools. If we don't build for families, we won't have students. Schools are funded based on how many students they have. So then the schools go down in our area. So just, it's another reason to build bigger units.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I want to see much more of that. We've got to be able to accommodate families. And one of the things that you are, blessed with, and this is true for many, many communities here on the west side, is that we are high opportunity areas. And that is attractive to the developers. And so I think we're going to continue to see these trends. With the neighborhood council system, I want to be really clear. I am a big fan of our neighborhood council systems. I know some other council members don't engage. They don't go to neighborhood council meetings. I participate regularly. My staff attends every neighborhood council meeting and every committee meeting. I am a big believer that you all are the subject matter experts in your own neighborhood. I don't live in West LA Sawtelle. I live in Venice. You know your neighborhood and where the traffic is and your choke points and the best noodle restaurant way better than I do. And so I believe very much in having the neighborhood councils serve in an advisory capacity. And I think that that is a really healthy system. But what is the point of having it if you have a council member that doesn't care and doesn't want to engage? I am not sure what the answer is about the ability to move the funding between various budgets or pots of money, but I have made a note of it to find that out. Jay, who was just asking a question a minute ago, probably will know that answer off the top of his head. So maybe chat him real quick. I'll bet you he can tell you, but otherwise I am going to make a note here and find that out because I actually don't know.
Now moving forward to Victoria.
Oh, hi. I didn't think you'd get to me.
Hi, Victoria. We got
Hi,
you.
Tracy. Thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure to meet you on Saturday at the Gabrielino Tongva Hot Springs event. I was there tabling for the neighborhood council. And anyway, I feel like a lot of people have brought up housing tonight, and specifically affordable housing. So I just kind of want to touch on that. Considering that the inability to afford rent is one of the biggest drivers of homelessness in LA, I feel like keeping housing affordable is just as important, if not more so, than building new housing. So to that end, would you support expanding rent control to all rental units, not just buildings built before 1980?
I would want to think it through, because you're right. Part of what has happened is that we have lost so much existing affordable housing stock. And, you know, let me say this, a lot of affordable housing can include a lot of different things, right? There are certain housing units that are government funded. Those are affordable and run and operated and funded by government. There are other housing units that are deed restricted, that are privately owned and operated. And you may have a housing development that is a blend of mostly market with a handful of affordable units jammed in there. That is one of the strategies that has led to the height and the density. Over time, as we have burdened housing providers, it is very, very expensive to be a landlord in the city of Los Angeles. There are insurance and maintenance costs and other expenses related to being a building owner and a housing provider. And some of the policies, particularly during the pandemic, were very, very impactful. And a lot of those most of what passes for affordable housing here on the West Side are older buildings. A lot of those older buildings that are multifamily are immigrant owned, minority owned, family owned. They are typically small family businesses. In many, many cases, they represent generational wealth. But if your business in any context doesn't pencil, you can't collect the rent, but you still have to pay the mortgage, you end up upside down. And we've seen a lot of buildings, and not just because of the pandemic, this was happening before, but the pandemic exacerbated it. We've seen a lot of buildings that passed for affordable housing, whether it was restricted and identified as such or not, fall off the market. They get purchased by corporate developers, and we end up with 6, 7, 8-story buildings that is mostly market rate, that may include 10% affordable units. And that's what the developer uses to get a lot of those, density enhancements. And so I guess that's to say I would maybe consider it, but I think that there is a lot more careful contemplation that needs to go into what actually drives affordability. And if people want to know why their rent is so dang expensive, in many cases, it is probably because your landlord is using you as an insurance policy against folks who aren't paying rent, tenants that they can't evict, rents that they can't raise on other units. And so there's a lot of things that go in to the affordability component. So I would want to think that through, but I always try, as I balance, especially the need for renter protections, because evictions can lead to homelessness for sure, and very difficult re-entry back into the housing market. I want to make sure that we are doing that in a balanced way that protects the housing and doesn't lead to the unintended consequences. but also gives tenants the right to stability and some certainty as well. So I always try to think those through and be balanced about it. And I'm also recognizing that developing in the west side is different than developing in some other parts of the city. Our land values alone here drive the cost of everything up, whether that is the rent itself or whether that is the cost of building a new unit. So complicated question and a lot to it.
We have 4 more
Okay,
questions.
let's get through 4 more because that's what I have the mental capacity to do. And then I am already a bit late for my next event. So let's do these last 4.
Next, I turn to Vega.
Hi, Councilwoman. Thanks for taking the extra time.
Of course.
You mentioned that we should bond together here in the Stoner area, and as you can see with my next question, we're doing exactly that. We're addressing the 1747 Stoner. We've been in this like side chat, just making sure we cover everything with the limited time we have. And two outstanding questions was. Would you recommend, like, as we form this local area of kind of pushing back on this thing, or at least coming to some sort of a resolution on getting hiring a lawyer to represent the group, is that worthwhile moving forward in these instances, or what would your recommendation be with that?
I have not seen litigation go well for folks. We just had another lawsuit that was filed against another ED1 project. That did not go well for the neighbors. And I don't want to send you down a rabbit hole that I don't think you'll be successful at, but I always think it's helpful to get legal advice. So far, the legal challenges have not been successful. Let me just put it that way. I think it's always helpful to get legal advice, but so far I've not seen that get the results people are looking for. It might slow it down. You might be able to force the developer to the table to try to get extra concessions if you have someone that's not willing to work with you. But I don't think it would be successful in stopping a project. I think probably I'm not sure if this project, have they done any community meetings at all? Has there been any outreach or engagement?
As far as a Stoner,
That's the one I was thinking of. I'm not sure if that's the project this question relates to, but sometimes you have a developer that actually cares and wants community buy-in, and they'll go out and do a lot of community engagement meetings and make people in the neighborhood aware of who they are and what they're building and invite them to come in. And sometimes they'll actually go to the neighborhood councils. We are seeing less and less and less of that because so much of the building is by right. But Michael or Craig, do we know about the one for 1747? They probably haven't even started with any community engagement.
None as far as I'm aware of.
I would say stay tuned with us and continue to work with us. I think we'd be willing just to, chat with the neighbors and hear what the concerns are and use us as a conduit to try to convey that. And let's start there and see where we land, is what I would recommend.
Moving forward to Kent.
Hi, Councilwoman Park. I don't need an answer, but we are going to have an exciting addition to the community. The metro is stopping right across the street from my house in about a couple years. So it will be able to take us to downtown, Beverly Hills, everything in between. Once that project gets completed, hopefully soon, Sawtelle, Brentwood, it's going to be geared to them. The streets around that terminus are it's a two-way thing. It starts and it ends at the VA. The streets need to be more pedestrian friendly. So you have Wilshire, you have San Vicente, which turns into Federal, You have the on-ramps and off-ramps for the 405 north and south. You know, I mean, I live 10 minutes from Westwood Village. I wouldn't even think of walking there, just the direction and playing chicken with the roads. I just want to make you all aware that the roads need improvement around the VA.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that. I appreciate the input. And as we think about HLA implementation and we think about where and how to prioritize our mobility enhancements, that's an area that comes up from time to time. So thank you for that insight and that feedback about it, actually. Good to know. Thank you.
Next, final two, we got Scott Riley.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Hey, Scott.
Great, thank you. Hello. Super quick. I just wanted to thank you for your support. I'm in the west side of Bundy, the Weesaw area that has been discussing the upzoning. So I just want to thank your support there. Sorry that we missed you when you were walking the neighborhood. We weren't home that day, I guess. Very micro issue, so I don't want to take up your time, but I still am, just concerned and interested in your thoughts on the zoning of the split block of 1700 Amherst, which borders 1700 Bundy. I believe it was still slated to be upzoned, and there's a concern there because if we upzone on the Bundy side, it's going to overshadow the houses on the Amherst side and even the street across from us. So I just want to get your thoughts there. Maybe we can handle it offline if you don't have enough time. So thank you.
We're happy to talk about it also offline because I'm not going to remember a lot of it off the top of my head. Michael, remind me, was this that one little sliver that we wanted to see included with the down zone? I don't even know how to describe what I'm saying, but there was like one little sliver that planning didn't include when we were making that first round of modifications. Is that where we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And indeed, we met with people extensively inside a home that would be impacted in that way under the current iteration.
And that's in the current batch of requests that are outstanding with planning department to address in the next round of maps, right?
Yes, we have
Okay,
that.
good. All right, I just wanted to make sure I remembered that correctly. So that is something that we have brought to planning's attention, and we have put on the list of things that we would like to see fixed and resolved in the next iteration. So stay tuned on that and stay in touch with us. We are going to continue to push to get that issue resolved. Yes, thank you.
And the last one that I have here is a follow-up, just a brief follow-up from Lori.
Hi, it's actually Danilo has a question.
Hi, Tracy. This is Danilo with the Neighborhood Council.
Hi.
Thank you for setting up this meeting and staying in touch with the neighborhood. I just have a question or a suggestion. When developers build these humongous buildings, aren't they required? Why can they be asked to contribute like $250,000 or something to better the street crossings, to put pedestrian crossings within 500 or 1,000 feet from what they're building? Because I feel like we're getting all these buildings, but the streets remain back like the 1960s. They're waiting for the city to pony up the money to make it look better and make it look nicer. They stop right at the sidewalk and they don't do anything else beyond that.
Yeah. That's a great question. And those are the types of benefits that we oftentimes work with developers on, whether it's a sidewalk upgrade, the addition of a crosswalk, other types of traffic mitigation efforts. Sometimes it's open space. Sometimes it's a contribution to a community park. Sometimes it's in the design of the building. So yes, those are the kinds of things that we ask for. Usually there aren't dollar amounts, although there are certain things, arts fees and park fees and things like that that developers pay into the city. I have not ever been satisfied that that money adequately comes back into the community the way it's intended. which is why a lot of times for us, just working directly with the developers and making those asks on the behalf of the neighbors is more effective, frankly. And we get mixed results with it. Like I said, some developers actually care. They actually want the community support. And, you know, I have a lot of developments, and this isn't going to surprise anybody in this Zoom. Adding density in parts of the west side is controversial. Some people like it, some people don't. And I have found that where you have a developer that actually does care about the community and they actually want to build something that the community is proud of, they will go out and do that engagement. And I have seen projects in CD11 that were adamantly opposed by neighbors. And the developers put in the time and made the revisions and did the community givebacks. And now the most strident opponent of that project will tell you it's one of the best things to have ever happened in the neighborhood. So, you know, that is the difference, in my opinion, between a good developer and one who isn't. But I don't have control over who buys the lots and what they propose. And so it's a bit of a hit or miss situation. Craig, I saw you come back on calendar. Did you need to jump in and shut me up?
No, I think that one of the projects that you're referring to is we work very closely with City View at 6134 Manchester, which is on the Plum agenda on Tuesday. It's a 441 unit mixed use, mixed income development that has no opposition from any of the neighborhoods residents who have put in their time working with the neighborhoods to come up with a project that everyone can live with and be supportive of.
Yeah.
And we happily work with them. We have another
And a project that I'm supportive of. So I heard that comment earlier that somehow I'm not supportive of housing. I am supportive of housing, and that's an example of a good one. And that's not the one I was thinking of. The one I was thinking of is actually Thatcher Yard and Marina Del Rey. That's an affordable housing project, mixed families and seniors in there. Very, very controversial. And now it's absolutely gorgeous. And it was exactly the right thing to put in that particular spot.
I think with that, thank you so much for staying with us and taking the time to engage. As a final few points, this town hall will be placed on our official YouTube page for you and all the neighbors to view in the future. To continue engaging with our office, you see my email right there, michael.amstad@lacity.org. You can also find our contact information at our website, cd11.lacity.org. On that website, you will also have the ability to sign up for our newsletter, where the councilwoman puts a great deal of time preparing each week for informing the community as to what we're doing in the field, what she's got going on in City Hall, everything that you need to know about what's happening with the city. With that, Councilwoman, do you have any final closing remarks?
Well, Michael, thank you so much for all of the work that you do every day to help our friends and neighbors in the West LA Sawtelle neighborhood. Thank you to the entire team for being here with us tonight and getting us into this town hall. Thank you as always to LAPD for being a friend and a partner, to the West Side and to the council office, and to all of you. I want you to know that we truly are here to help. We do not have a magic wand. I can't solve every problem, but my entire team and I are here to help troubleshoot, to move as many legislative or policy changes as are necessary to help you create the community and the future that you want for West LA Sawtelle. So consider us an ally and a friend. Please reach out to us if there is ever anything we can do. If you have questions, you need support on issues or for events, let us know. We're around. We're always here to help. Have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.